Boa Hancock is a great example of a female character done right. I'd even go as far as to say that she's a pretty popular character regardless if you like her or not. If I have to be honest, one of the things that drew me to Boa Hancock was her strength and how strong she was, especially as a female character. I feel like I don't see that too often, so when I do see it, it makes me pretty happy and makes the anime all the more enjoyable. There's no dead weight, and at that point every character is being utilized and there's no wasted potential. It's also partly why One Piece is my favorite anime and Dragon Ball Z not so much. With Dragon Ball Z, I don't feel like all the characters are being utilized, not even the side characters. One Piece does that very well, including utilizing the women. Naruto could definitely learn a thing or two as they did Sakura really dirty. Sakura is an example of a character that just can't win. She couldn't win in the anime and she definitely couldn't win with the fan base, especially with the Naruto fan base coming off a little hypocritical. I mean, if you think about it, characters like Sakura are trashed, while characters that did far worse are celebrated and praised, like Itachi and Obito. It makes no sense to me and I will never understand it. With that being said, let's dive a little bit deeper and get into Boa's background and other things. So Boa has quite the past, and that's kind of putting it lightly. At the age of 12, her and her sisters were captives. I can assure you that at the age of 12, you're supposed to be doing a lot of things, having a lot of fun, and being a captive is definitely not one of those things. But anyway, they get held captive at the age of 12 and they're sold to the world nobles. Now the world nobles are basically what makes up the world government, and for some reason they were fed devil fruits during their stay. This is how Boa obtained her devil fruit. I imagine that they weren't exactly picky about what they ate, so it makes sense on their end, but I guess I don't understand why the world government or the world nobles chose to feed them devil fruits out of all the things to feed them. I mean, I get that they're captive and it's not exactly like they're staying in a 5-star hotel or an Airbnb or anything nice like that, but either way, a devil fruit is a really strange thing to feed someone, especially when it has the potential to make them stronger and a bit more difficult to deal with. In my eyes, that's kind of like giving them a power up, but maybe that's where the sea stone comes into play. Anyway, they remained that way for 4 years, and that's a very long time to remain captive. On their 4th year, they were freed by Fisher Tiger. He originally went there to free fishermen captives, but he somehow found it in his heart to not discriminate, and he freed who he could, which is a really nice thing for him to do. I mean, if I have to be honest, that's a pretty hard thing to take in and see. So I could see why he would free everyone and not just go with a particular group. Knowing me, I'd probably do the same thing because it doesn't take much to pull at my heartstrings, and plus the most obvious thing is that no one deserves that kind of treatment, no matter what race you are. If he hadn't freed Boa and her sisters, who knows how long they would have been there. And because of what Boa went through, she naturally grew up to distrust everyone, which I don't blame her. If I was in that situation, that'd be a very hard thing for me to bounce back as well. I probably wouldn't have much will to live and I'd be very angry. Not to mention wherever she went, she'd have their mark branded onto her body forever, and that's a painful reminder to carry around. Boa and her sisters even came up with a cover-up story to disguise what really happened. And basically the story involves slaying a monster called a Gorgon, and as punishment for slaying a Gorgon, they were cursed. Now what supposedly comes with that curse is that Hancock has the ability to petrify anyone that shows any amount of lust towards her, while her sisters can transform into a human-snake hybrid at will. So whenever the sisters bathe, the rest of the tribe has to evacuate the main castle in order to leave the sisters alone to bathe, so that no one is petrified. At least that's what they told everyone. So after they were freed, they were faced with another problem. Where exactly did they go from here? I think maybe some people would go home, but it's hard to tell because what exactly do you expect of a place you haven't been to in 4 years? Maybe that place has changed, maybe something has happened. Do you really want to risk it not knowing if that place is safe or not to return to? Anyway, eventually Boa ended up going back home. Her and her sisters ended up back home thanks to Silver's Raylan, and even though she was free and no longer a captive, everything that she went through still remained with her, so she became hard and cold. And she still kind of had that tough exterior even when she became Empress of the Kusha. Again, I can't really blame her. I'd argue that Boa had a reason for turning out the way that she did. She went through a pretty traumatic event at such a young age, and similar to Gohan, she didn't really have a childhood. Except in her case, which is far more extreme, her innocence was ruined. I don't think I'd go as far as to say that Gohan's innocence was ruined, because it definitely wasn't, and he didn't go through the same hell that Boa and her sisters went through. But he definitely didn't grow up normal either. But anyway, despite what she went through, that didn't stop her from becoming an empress and capturing the attention of the Marines and the world government. Boa even later joined the 7 Warlords of the Sea, and the 7 Warlords are basically selected to ally the world government. Not gonna lie, this was something that took me by surprise, especially given Boa's past, because who exactly would want to work with the world government after being held a captive? But I think Boa actually did this to protect her fellow Kuja, which I think says a lot, especially given what she went through and how much she despises them.
嘘じゃ、調子に乗るな。にょ。いえ、嘘や。おにょれ、び姫。にょ。
As far as development, I feel like Boa has come a long way. When Boa made her first appearance, I didn't like her at all. She came off cruel, she came off jaded, and she only seemed to care about herself. Not to mention there was that one scene where the kids had made her something out of clay, and the first thing she did was pushed it down and destroyed it, despite how long they spent making it. Not gonna lie, that was a donkey move. Not to mention she also threw the elder out of the window. After just seeing those 2 scenes, I made up my mind that I did not like Boa and I did not like her character at all. She had a very entitled character, and I don't like entitled characters. Well, I like prideful characters, but I feel like there's a difference between prideful and entitled, or I could be wrong. Anyway, Boa was basically treating everyone like garbage because she knew she'd be forgiven for it because of her looks, and I didn't like that. However, I have to admit that Oda did a really good job changing how I felt about Boa. Boa went from a character I didn't really care to see on screen to a character I actually look forward to seeing. And I think meeting Luffy was a pivotal change in Boa's development because Boa thought very little of men and others until she met Luffy. If you think about it, Luffy wasn't swayed by her appearance, nor did he lust after her, and Luffy also wasn't selfish like Boa expected him to be. Boa literally put Luffy through every test she can think of, and Luffy passed all of them with flying colors. Now let's be honest, love can be a really beautiful thing, it can be a great thing. However, it can also be a horrible thing depending on who you're with. But in Boa's case, I really think falling in love with Luffy was one of the best things that could have ever happened to her. I think falling in love helped her open up her heart a good bit, and it helped her develop. And I'd argue because of her feelings for Luffy, she even proved useful and saved Luffy so many times, especially at Impel Down. Let's not forget that it was Boa that snuck Luffy in the first place so he could free Ace. The Boa we were first introduced to wouldn't have done anything like that, especially for a man, no less. Now I know some people may be iffy when it comes to love interest, especially in anime, and it can even be a bit too much or overbearing in some cases. But I really think this is a case where the love interest isn't too much. The only case where I can think of a love interest being way too much is with Gray and Juvia from Fairy Tail. Now I don't mind Juvia's reason for falling in love with Gray. I personally feel like Juvia has a really good reason for loving Gray, but I feel like her love is all they've reduced her to, and that's a problem for me. In Boa's case, it's a bit refreshing because she's more than her love interest, and I feel like she has individuality apart from it.
Slave Arrow!
So Boa's backstory as well as her strength is what reeled me in so much, as well as her fighting style because it's similar to Sanji's, and I've always found Sanji's fighting style pretty unique and impressive. Plus, I think I'm fascinated with watching people fight with their legs for some reason, I just can't explain it. Anyway, Boa Hancock is definitely someone you wouldn't want to cross. She's pretty dangerous up close and in long range combat, so you probably won't get pretty far thanks to her pistol kiss. What I find impressive about her is that she's even said to be one of the very few people in the world that can use all 3 types of haki. A bit of trivia I learned about Boa is that she actually has the 2nd highest bounty for a female character and is also the only female besides Big Mom to have Billion Berries bounties. Honestly, Boa is a really good ally for the Straw Hats to have, especially Luffy, because she's already proven herself useful countless times. And there's no telling what else she'll be able to help with in the near future. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Boa Hancock for the time being. How do y'all feel about Boa Hancock? How did you first feel about her? How do you feel about her now? And do you think she's developed since we first seen her? I'm also kind of curious if there's anyone out there that doesn't like Boa Hancock, or if she's truly managed to charm the hearts of everyone. Anyway, leave a comment down below, let me know how you feel about her. Thank you for tuning in. Sierra Nova is out.